So, today I'd like to talk about some of the major themes found in the Old Testament. The Old Testament contains many important themes, and I think each of them are important in their own right. But I'm going to share with you the themes that are my favorites and what resonated with me the most. So, the first one is creation. This is first. This is the first theme we encounter in the Old Testament, found in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, where the Bible begins with, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Already, this very first sentence of the Bible establishes the power and might of the Creator. The creation theme is visible throughout Genesis, where we see God create the whole world and everything in it. We see God's most miraculous creation in Genesis 1, verse 26, where he creates mankind. Genesis 1:26 reads, "Then God said, 'Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground.'" It continues with, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them, male and female he created them." I love these verses because it immediately shows God's love for us, that he has good plans for us, and it shows us our duty and role in creation. We were given a calling from the beginning of time. We see the creation theme peppered throughout Genesis in chapter 4, when Adam and Eve grew their family and Cain and Abel entered the world. We see it again in Genesis when God commanded Noah to build the ark. God wiped out civilization because it had become so sinful, yet God establishes another new creation with Noah and his family. We see the creation theme in Abraham and Sarah's story, as well as in the stories of their descendants. Creation is a very prominent theme all throughout the Bible. We see this theme carried into the New Testament, where God creates a new covenant through Jesus Christ. Another theme found in the Old Testament is that of the covenants. We find several covenants God establishes with his people throughout the Old Testament. We see God establish a covenant with Adam in Genesis chapter 3. Verse 14 begins the covenant where God tells the serpent, "Because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and all wild animals. You will crawl on your belly and you will eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head and you will strike his heel." In Genesis chapter 9, God establishes his covenant with Noah when he tells Noah in verse 11, "I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth." And God said, "This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth." God establishes covenants with Abraham, Moses, and David as well. The covenant theme is important because this is how God makes relationships with his people. These covenants are also significant because they show God's faithfulness throughout the entire story of the Bible. They show what God promises as well as what God requires of us. We see God keep these promises as we continue on throughout the Bible. The last theme I find of great significance is the theme of the greatness of Yahweh. The theme of creation, as well as the covenants God established with his people, both portray this theme of God's greatness. There are many verses all throughout the Old Testament that show the greatness of Yahweh. Jeremiah 10 verse 6 says, "No one is like you, Lord. You are great and your name is mighty in power." Jeremiah 10 verse 6. In Habakkuk, God says, "Look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. For I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told." Many of the Psalms prominently display this theme. For example, the entirety of Psalm 147 speaks on the greatness of Yahweh. First Chronicles chapter 16 verse 25 says, "For great is the Lord and most worthy of praise. He is to be feared above all gods." I think this is arguably the most important theme found throughout the entire Bible. This theme shows up many, many times throughout the Old Testament. Many of the Psalms, Proverbs, Genesis, Exodus, the list continues of all the areas that display the greatness of Yahweh. This is a highly prominent theme throughout the Bible. The first couple of verses of the Ten Commandments begin with, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. These two verses alone command respect, fear, greatness, and authority. He is the God that brought us out of slavery. God keeps every one of his promises. He is always faithful, even when we are not. He is truly worthy of our praise and worship. In conclusion, these are three of my favorite themes found throughout the Old Testament as well as the entire Bible. They each help us see God's love, faithfulness, and supremacy above all else. Thank you.